Boy, it's been a while, hasn't it? I wonder how long since my last proper game talk video. Huh. Yeah, this is a good time. Anyway, I suppose now is a fantastic time to talk about why I love this game so much and regard it as one of the best entries in the Sonic franchise. It's been about 13 years since Heroes first graced our consoles and PCs, which is pretty crazy when you think about it. I mean, there are kids who've been born and are now fixing to attend high school since this game was released. Wow. Anyway, back on track. Sonic Heroes is, in my opinion at least, a great piece to this franchise that well deserves my praise. I'll elaborate more on that later, but to simplify it, it's fun, accessible, easy to play, colorful, is a major part of the main canon, and has probably one of the best plot twists in a family-friendly media I have seen now that I'm old enough to really appreciate the brilliance of it. Now, as much as I would have loved to decorate this video with my own gameplay clips, it looks like we'll have to settle for cutscenes and a visual quality about 2 steps above a toaster, because 1, I don't have unlimited download data for my computer, and 2, I had to obtain the clips via phone. That's fine though. The original clips were never in true HD. This is fine. This is fine. And I'll just use generic clips. Anyway, as with the previous videos, these are my personal opinions. If you don't agree, then good for you. The back button is in the top left corner of your screen. Anyway, let's get started. One fantastic thing about this game is that the amount of playable characters is by far one of the largest for a story-based campaign I've ever seen. While it's easy to say that there's only a mere 4 teams to work with, take a moment and count the characters you have control over. There's 3 per team, with cheese counting as an extension of cream, and that means you have a choice of 12 characters split into teams of 3 to play as, with each of them playing more or less the same as their counterparts, but differently from their own teammates. Combine the fact that you have a choice to use either a speedy character, a powerhouse of strength, or one who can take flight at any given time. It's a clever way to keep the gameplay fresher longer, as each one is given a specific set of abilities and locations to access via them. Characters who play like Sonic can cover great distances faster, perform moves and attacks exclusive to their play type, and overall they allow us to streamline the formations. Ones who play similar to Knuckles are not quite as speedy, but allow us to break down walls, use other members as projectiles, and catch a breeze to let us cover more distance, though I won't ask how Omega can float on air currents, as it's probably best not to look too far into it. And of course, those who play like Tails lets us reach higher, explore further with a small safety net, and in the case of Charmy, we can access what equates to teleportation pads for the Chaotix. But the varying styles don't stop there, no. We also have unique stories for each of them that play differently depending on which one you choose. Team Sonic, of course, is what would be probably called the main quest, and Team Dark would be like a master quest of sorts, given their higher difficulty. Team Rose is the one meant for younger players and budding gamers, with its simpler and shorter levels, and Team Chaotix deviates most from the formula by putting us on what would probably be called a fetch quest for every level. So we have 12 characters, 4 teams, 3 playstyles, and 4 interlocking quests. Oh, and a final story that ties it all together, so by the looks of it, it gives us a decent amount of things to do. Fantastic! Given the roster, it's interesting to note that the story-centric characters are, save for about 2 of them, familiar faces we've seen over the years. I myself grew up with the Genesis games in Knuckles Chaotix, due mostly to not having the new systems, so I was unfortunate to miss the Dreamcast era when it was happening. It goes without saying that, of course, Team Sonic, Team Rose, and Team Chaotix are all faces we've met prior to this outing, as well as Shadow, Rouge, Eggman, and Battle Sonic. All in all, there's only 2 characters who really have been spawned specifically from this game, those being E123 Omega and Chocola, Cheese's brother. Of those 2, the only one to actually return well enough to be remembered is Omega, who's gone on to be a very popular addition to the franchise, while Chocola was just kinda there. So, that said, this game is, as grand as it appeared, only really introduced 1 new character to the franchise, so they didn't overload us with too much at once. It brought back Rouge and Shadow from the previous game, as well as beginning a mystery/debate that spanned the course of 5 years, with probably no less than 3 games about the latter character. Revived some characters from an obscure game about 8 years prior, from an add-on console that was also obscure, brought cream to the consoles for us, gave Big the Cat a much more epic role, gave us our golden 5 main characters once more, which would be, of course, the original core cast, being Sonic, Tails, Knuckles, Amy, and Eggman. Gave us Omega, and of course, gave Metal Sonic one of his biggest appearances to date, and let him reprise his role as an antagonist for one glorious battle. Or for those of us like me who never got to play Sonic CD before getting a hold of Sonic Heroes, then Metal was most often a side character in some handhelds, and his role in Knuckles Chaotix is what I most recall, so this was my first real introduction to Metal, and let me just say, that was quite an impression that it had left on me. I'll keep this short and sweet, as I don't have much clips to back this up, but I can say with confidence that Sonic Heroes has some of the funnest levels I've ever played in a 3D Sonic game. Rails, ramps, springs, cannons, platforms, and gimmicks. This game always managed to keep the pace fast, the levels easy to navigate, the scale of the world large, and the placement of things more or less on point. While I do dislike the rail levels almost as much as the torch lighting levels, at least they still kept the environment entertaining. The special stages are reminiscent of the old Sonic 2 variants, and the boss battles keep to a sort of arena feel that, like, they have an advantage of the sudden change in level design. Though the Chow in the special stages can go fall in a ditch. Nothing against Chow in general, I love the little critters to pieces, I have so many of them, but those two little trolls can, and I reiterate, go fall in a ditch. There's much to be referenced and set up in this game. While it can be easy to miss much of them on the first playthrough, there's a healthy handful of references and homages to past games, helping us to cement a timeline in the series that always seemed to be stuck in limbo. Quite obviously, given the placement and release and some characters involved, there's plenty of nods to the adventure duology, as well as a good dose of Knuckles Chaotix, Sonic CD, and even Sonic 3 and Knuckles for good measure. The most notable references surround Shadow and Metal, obviously, but that's a given. This game is also what helped set the stage for the entry that followed, Shadow the Hedgehog's self-titled game, which in itself is a spiritual sequel of sorts to Shadow's story in Sonic Adventure 2. The aforementioned stage set was pertaining to Shadow's survival of what should have certainly killed him, the damage to his memory it caused, and the mystery around his true purpose and identity. But that should be another video for another day. Big the Cat returns from Sonic Adventure, though technically was seen prior to Heroes and Sonic Shuffle, but really, who really remembers that game beyond me, to once again find his friend Froggy to help bring him back home. Rouge is still continuing her treasure hunting at this point, and she, much like those present for Sonic Adventure 2, remember quite clearly what happened to Shadow, and she even alludes to the information she stumbled upon about Shadow's possible faulty memories of his identity. And of course Metal Sonic and his overall role in the series to that point. This game was a great way to refresh returning fans, or to tease the info to the new ones to entice them into purchasing and buying the previous installments. Not to mention, it helped sell the following game before it was even announced. It's actually kind of awesome. By this point, we all know what went down. We all know that Metal Sonic was the true mastermind all along. We all know that Metal Sonic appears as the final boss. We all know about his transformations and his overall role. There are no spoilers to that. It's about as well known among the fans as, well, Darth Vader being Luke Skywalker's father, or Rosebud being the name of the sled. But what we really don't take the time to realize is the brilliance in Metal Sonic having been the true antagonist to the game all along. We know that Metal had been collecting data from everyone, like he's Sonic version of Cell from Dragon Ball Z. We all know that he had locked Eggman up in a cell and took control of the Egg Fleet. We know for sure Metal had lured everyone to him in an attempt to wipe them all out and move forward with his plan. But did we ever really stop to take a moment and realize that Metal was the one fighting us all along? Yes, it's true. Let's look at the clues here. Eggman was the one who reached out to the Chaotix for help while being held captive. As the Chaotix story runs alongside everyone else's, we can gather that Eggman has been trapped probably not too long before the story officially starts. That means that Metal was the one who wrote the letter for Team Sonic inviting them to stop him. That also means every encounter we have with Eggman was in fact Metal under the guise of him, using his newfound transformation ability. Egg Hawk, Egg Albatross, Egg Emperor, all of those were Metal Sonic. Eggman telling Shadow that he had no past to remember? That was Metal purposely misleading Shadow, meaning that Eggman was actually innocent the whole game, which means the Chaotix beat up an innocent bystander. Whoops. Perhaps a matter of opinion, but I'd like to think that Heroes has one of the best soundtracks of the modern era of Sonic. It's quirky, fun, cute, and has a few rather nice mood setters for the most dramatic and intense settings. The music surrounding Metal Sonic and his transformations particularly are good, especially the final boss music. Bingo Highway is always a treat to hear, as is Seaside Hill, and the vocal tracks are probably cemented as iconic tunes from the game that you can't include one without the rest. This is probably the reason why I made the actual conscious effort to purchase the OST from a comic shop when I had the chance. I do not regret it, even if I can't read the insert booklet for the lack of the ability to read kanji. What I'm Made Of is probably the first song I think of when thinking of the tracks, perhaps tied with the titular theme tune. It's also part of what I like to attribute to being my first real experience with a final boss, without the use of cheat codes, and its sudden epicness being a backdrop to a battle with what equates to a robot dragon in the sky, really helped make it have a special place in my heart. It's an audible memory of what was my first real gaming experience that wasn't casual gaming, and it, alongside the boss fight it accompanies, is what helped me set my own personal bar as to what to expect in a final showdown in a game. Good tunes, giant beast enemy, projectiles the size of airships, and the tiny heroes giving their all. In short, the music helped make the game, and I love it. I don't often talk about it, but Omega is one of my favorite characters in the franchise, specifically his portrayals in Heroes, Shadow the Hedgehog, and the recent Archie comics. Considering his character establishing moment is him immediately making himself known, stating his purpose, and promptly getting subdued by Rouge, he wants to show his superiority over the rest of his line of robots by taking them all on one by one. He wants to take down his creator for shoving him in his storage. He shows signs of being capable of expressing and experiencing emotions, much like most of Eggman's creations. He even grows as a character in the story, having gone from outright hating his team to offering his best efforts of comfort to a troubled Rouge, and later expands on that in subsequent appearances. Omega also, much like his brother Gamma before him, has the distinction of being a rogue Eggman robot who has completely defected from the alliance of his creator, and has since become somewhat of a part-time hero, though usually his interests and actions coincide with the hero's adventures. Omega is a fantastic result of this game, and an important acquaintance to Shadow and Rouge. While I've explained the twist already, I'd like to add a bit more on Metal before closing the video. Having not owned Sonic CD in any form until a few years later, my only other interaction with Metal Sonic prior to Sonic Heroes was him and Knuckles' Chaotix. That said, this made Heroes feel more like a spiritual sequel to Chaotix, as they both not only feature SBO, Vector, Charmy, and Metal, but the concept of characters being teamed up and more or less bound by an invisible force really kind of warped my perspective of things for a bit. That in mind, having seen Metal on a grander scale here, I had a much better introduction to his concept that compelled me to want to look up and obtain a few more things that might have not been possible in the way that I have, if not for this game. The same can be said about Shadow and Rouge, as I didn't own a copy of Sonic Adventure 2 prior to Heroes, so this was the game that introduced them to me. That said, these three altogether were a treat to experience in this way, and playing the prior games to feature them made me feel like I was unlocking some sort of hidden backstory. So anyway, how does the game hold up to today's standards? Well, it's all really a matter of opinion, but I personally feel that this is certainly worth a play if one had never done so before, and certainly worth replaying if you've already had gone through the adventure. It's easy to play, easy to learn, accessible. It can basically run on a good deal of hardware still available to this day. It's easy to come by, and it offers kind of a simple, coherent plot that doesn't make you have to go too far down a rabbit hole to, fully enjoy it. It caters to all ages, and its colorful presentation and musical stylings make it a product of its time in a good way. And its playstyle encourages you to step off the beaten path to explore new ways to finish levels. So, really, if you haven't played it before, go find it. It's real easy to find, and go play it. This has been Ray Logan, and I'll catch you all later.